Okay, well, welcome in everyone. I'm very delighted that Quire was available to give an artist talk to talk more about her work because actually it's it really, I think, when you know the stories behind the work, the process that she uses, the research that she does, the motivations, etc. I welcome in. It really makes a massive difference, I think, in the kind of, which is the same for every art piece, to be honest. But here, I think, is one of those cases where actually having the context, the background, the process makes actually quite a massive difference. And I'm sure that you will appreciate that. Are you all, I know that you are in Seattle. Are you all locals otherwise? So, many of the buildings here you recognize, and that also will feel closer to home. Anyway, without saying much more, I'm really delighted that Quire could give this talk. She's local, she's Oregon City, that's where I'm based also. She's been with the gallery a couple of years now, and this is the second solo show that she does for Imperfecta. So thanks, Quire, and I'm gonna record you if everything is okay, so we can put it on your YouTube.
That's
okay.
Great. YouTube okay. Thank you, Daria, for supporting my work and believing me as an artist and a human. I really appreciate that. I'm just going to tell you a smidge about myself. I am a mom of a child, a 7-year-old child, and I grew up in a conservative Christian setting. So some of that informs my work and to an extent of what I want to talk about and everything. I mentioned that I'm a mom because my work pre-motherhood was very different, and I was really focused on I'm going to make these big impressive pieces and they're going to look cool, I'm going to say something, and I did make pieces. I did all this cutting and lighting and blah blah, and then after I have a child, the gift of motherhood is it takes time away from you, so that you have to use your time well. And also for the first year of my child's life, I didn't do any art, and then as I started getting back into it, it was the first time in my life that I really felt that I needed to do this for myself. I was like, I need to be making and connecting this way, and no matter what happens with my art, I just need to be making it. And that was a huge gift to give back to myself, because I think being a kid who oh, you can draw good, that becomes the thing you can do, and you do it for attention, or and then I went to art school, and, oh, you're the artist girl, and you have this I'm gonna, you have this thing that it's your ego and it's your identity, and having that taken away and just giving back the gift of just making art and knowing that I needed it for myself was a huge gift of motherhood. So that's when I started doing watercolor and gouache. So, which these pieces are all in watercolor and gouache. So, for this series, it's titled Logo Stuff, and this piece over here with the pretty pink flowers, that's fireweed. That was the piece that gave me the idea for the whole series. So, I drive by, that's old abandoned cherries. Even before it was abandoned, I would drive by that, and they would really let their landscape go. They would not do anything for months. So, and when they would do that in the summertime, a whole field of fireweed would pop up. And I don't know if you're familiar with fireweed. It's called fireweed because it is one of the first plants that comes up after fire and starts to regenerate the land. And it is edible and medicinal. And so it has lots of gifts to give us and lots of wisdom to give us. And then so I'd watch this beautiful fireweed come up, and then they would get their stuff together and they'd mow, and they just mow it down to keep the landscaping. And it just made me so mad. And it kind of got me thinking of and then the other thing I read, there was I can't remember who it was, but they were a wildlife biologist, and I think they were an indigenous individual, and they were talking about how doing research of plants that they thought were long gone for decades or centuries, areas where the land was just left alone, these plants were coming back, and things that they didn't think existed anymore. And so that was the thought that got me started on this series. Thinking about overall, what are our choices? And as a society, we're moving forward. We've been making choices for decades and centuries, and our choices have kind of led us to fulfill our needs in these ways. And we kind of do have to have some of this stuff because there's so many of us now. in Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer is the author. She is a indigenous wildlife biologist, and her book is Braiding Sweetgrass. But she talks about like her experience as a wildlife biologist and weaving her indigenous knowledge into that and life experience into that. But she discusses, she's saying, I'm not trying to get us back to just all foraging and hunting because there's now too many people on Earth to sustain that. However, I do want us to consider what we've lost and like wisdom that the Earth can give us. So, which brings me to this piece, because this is the Walmart on 82nd. If you drive around 82nd enough, or even like the Johnson Creek exit, you'll see like little marshy areas where you'll see cattails. And like it made me wonder, like, how much did they just pave over, drain and pave over to make the whole strip of 82nd, right? So, and in the book, in Braiding Sweetgrass, one of the chapters is about cattails. These are cattails. And she takes her students out for field research, and they don't bring much with them, and they're camping for weeks at a time. And she takes them into the marsh and teaches them that every piece of the cattail is either edible or useful. And this is a discussion of like, we have this big box store where we get one-stop shop, all of our needs met. And the students started calling the marsh Walmarsh. They'd be like, oh, I need this for that. And they're like, let's go to Walmarsh and get it, because the cattail is so useful. So that's, I specifically chose that to talk about that discussion. So we also did something fun where we have the seeds from each plant. So it's really soft. You can touch it later if you want because you came to the artist talk. So we have the seeds from each of the plants. So, and all the plants echo the functions of the buildings or structures that are in them. We have, this is like a fitness gym. You know the one, probably 24-hour fitness. And it was built right on the Clackamas. It's in a strip mall where they clear cut a part of the Clackamas and they just put buildings up, and it just pisses me off. And I'm like, why? You could leave some of the forest and then put it back over here. What are you thinking? Leave the river alone. So, and this plant is dogsbane, which is used by our indigenous community to make baskets, which is sacred and functional for those communities, and also I think other tools and weapons. And it's super flexible and strong. Dogsbane because it will kill a dog if they eat enough. And I think it'll kill a human if you eat enough. So it's not one you want to eat, but it's highly useful. And it grows along this area. So hence, but strong and flexible is something that we get for our bodies at a gym. Right, and then this is the knowledge that the plant gives us, how we can use it. So we have like Krispy Kreme and or fast fat. And this plant is the mallow, and there's a bunch of different types of mallow. All of them are edible. Their leaves are more nutritious than spinach and have a less bitter flavor, FYI, if you want to know that. But the marshmallow is the plant where the root is taken to make marshmallows. So there's literally a plant that we've been for centuries making sweet treats from. So again, the plant is echoing the function of the building. And this one has lots of function in it. I would like to talk about this piece for a minute. It's entitled Infrastructure. It's both our physical infrastructures with how we get to place, and our connective infrastructures like, telephone wires, communication, and energy. And the plants that are here are a little different. These are trunks of western red cedars, and that's, which by the way can live up to 1,800 years old, if you want to know. But, indigenous communities used the bark to make their houses, and also canoes, and also tools and such. So highly useful, used for infrastructure for lives. And then you have the mushrooms growing on the trees, and the relationship of mushroom mycelium to forests. Everything that has roots in the forest, especially trees, creates a network of communication. So this is the only one I put two in. So so that's the relationship. with those two. Yeah, and then so each of them, I could go on the rest of them if you guys want me to. I could explain the relationship. Do you want me to keep going?
Yes.
All right. So here, this is an abandoned Burger King, and I just want to say something real quick. If you see any graffiti, I didn't copy the graffiti exactly because that's somebody else's artwork. I just kind of did a gesture of what it kind of looked like to me because I didn't want to be literally stealing people's artwork for my own. So just FYI. But here is actually dandelion root. Has anybody eaten a dandelion root? You gotta roast it. It's delicious. So bye-bye carrots, bye-bye turnips. No, those are good too. But yeah, like a flame broiled hamburger, you can have a nice starchy dandelion root that actually is anti-inflammatory for your body, FYI. So then we have up here Med Club, which was a Rite Aid. And this is a plant called mullein. I think it's technically invasive, but as in it wasn't here originally. But there's quite a few plants that weren't here originally that indigenous communities, when they came over, they saw the benefit of the plant, they just kind of adopted it. And so, which I think is I just want to talk about that for a second, because I think, and not to offend anyone, myself included, a lot of Western ideas of helping the land be reclaimed, we think of we have to bring everything back native, which I've planted a native plant garden. That's my friends to help me do that. So yes, but also there's just to know that there's many plants that when they came, they saw their uses and they were brought in and welcomed by the community that understood the ecology and had a relationship with the land. Is really cool to me because it's I think Westerners were very binary, it has to be this or this, and I talk about that a lot in my art too. So to welcome in these plants, another one is plantain. I can talk about that later. It's not in the art, so we're not going to talk about it now. So a little bit of plant art. Anyways, so mullein is in front of a pharmacy because it is a wonderful expectorant to get stuff out of your lungs. So it's great for when you have colds or flus. And it's highly medicinal. The flowers, the beautiful little yellow flowers, and the leaves, both of them, good for you, so good for you. And then this one here, I really like, it's purslane. Purslane is very common. Once you learn how to identify it, you're gonna see it everywhere. There is a lookalike that's not edible, but once you learn how to identify them, you're like, oh, this is nothing alike. So I'll say that much. Purslane actually has a lot of nutrition. One of the main things it has is, what's it called? Omega-3 fatty acids, which you usually get from meat and fish. You can get that from a plant. And so I have it in front of a burger joint because there you go. And lastly, this is, I guess shouldn't walk in front of that. This is a industrial building. I do not know its use, but I decided to pair it with the dandelion because one, dandelions can come up anywhere. A lot of these paintings, some of them, the plants are specific to the area, like the dogs baying by the river and the marsh, the cattails by the marsh. But some of them, like mullein and dandelion and purslane, they're tough mothers. They can go anywhere. And dandelion is so prolific, and almost every part of the dandelion is edible. The root's edible, the leaves are edible, the flowers are edible. So they're just kind of like this prolific powerhouse of food that can grow in so many places. And so I paired that next to an old, like a factory, something that would produce a lot or, do heavy work. So that was the idea with that. And then that's all. Does anyone have questions they'd like to ask or comments? Please
You've chosen to sort of generalize rather than putting Walmart or Burger King or whatever.
Yes.
I imagine, I can think one reason is because people could consider it advertising for them in one way, or maybe there's copyright issues that might be involved. But but the first thing I wanted to know is what are the actual places?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a sort of a literal person.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
For
So,
me, it made a difference. I mean, and I can see, particularly, when you're talking about the cattails and the Walmart on 82nd Avenue and renaming it All Stuff, which is sort of, it fits in with the theme of the painting. I can see that it works in the context of the work, but I still think of it as a Walmart.
yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess that's the idea. If you can identify it, then oh, that's the logo. 24-hour fitness or whatever. You get the best of both possible worlds.
Yes.
Someone can identify it, but it remains generic and works with the work. So I guess I've answered my own question, but it's all right.
No, thank you. I love it. Saving me smart there.
There you go.
Something I do want to say about this piece is, like, I don't know if y'all have been to the 82nd Walmart. It is dystopian. They have these generator-run, huge, like on huge poles, and their video cameras to deter crimes. They also play classical music. And I'm going there and I'm photographing the Walmart. I'm like, what the heck is that sound? I was like, is there an event going on? And then I get closer to it, and I'm like, it's just this pole. They're playing music from this pole, and it felt so dystopian. And so that's why I have the watchful eye there. They're watching you. Don't you steal our stuff at Walmart? And there's a big, that was actually there. I didn't make that up, that big old camera there. I don't know if you can see that detail, but so that was something I wanted to kind of communicate. Because also, I think they recently redid the outside, and it looks pretty nice, and then that's PU for pickup. That's where you pick up your things. So it was funny, my daughter came in and I wasn't gonna put anything there. In the photo, there was something there, grocery pickup or whatever. And she's like, you need to put something in there. That's my impression of her. Mama, you need to put something in there. And I was like, you know what, you're right. So I did. So thank you, Belle. So Walmart, 24-hour fitness, Krispy Kreme, abandoned Burger King, Sherry's, abandoned Rite Aid, and a Carl's Jr. So in case
Are they mainly abandoned, except for the all stuff Walmart?
They're not. Only two of them. Only two of the recognizably commercial ones are abandoned, and then of course the factory or whatever that was at the end. So yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? I welcome them all. Yes.
I'm really fascinated to hear that the Robin Wall Kimmerer book inspired you, because it also has inspired me greatly in life and different foraging things that I utilize when I'm in the woods, and also for just my own artistic process. So it's wonderful to hear that had the same effect on you. And I'm just wondering if, because of that, there's even more of these in the series that you could imagine and want to do.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool if I full disclosure, I've never read the book, I've only listened to it, but I listened to it because she pronounces all the native words correctly, and so I'm like, I don't even want to read it, I just want to, and it's her voice too, it's her actual voice, so you're like, oh, I'm getting close to you, you're a wonderful human. It's like having your mom read you that bedtime story. But that would be interesting, going back and listening or reading that book again. I've also read her book about the service berries, and I wanting to get her book about moss. Oh no, I did read her. I listened to her book about moss, but I was painting, so I was half listening. But her book about moss is really cool, really, really cool, really cool. So especially people living in the Pacific Northwest, there's stuff you should know about moss in that book. I encourage you to read it. So
yeah, I could imagine you really.
I
could imagine you really could continue on this wonderful theme, because there's just, like, the moss could be a whole series, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just, especially in the Pacific Northwest, we all have our moss experiences, and it's, different times everywhere.
Yeah, it's crazy amounts of times.
Go for it.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk more about if this was your intention to have the plants in the forefront and the buildings or the structures in the background? What made you want to portray it that way?
That's a good question. That's one of those things, those decisions you make as an artist that you're like, it just feels like the right thing to do.
Okay.
And there's no specific, if it communicates something specific to you, please share.
It's like a portal. is
It's
what
a portal, okay.
It's like a snapshot to the beginning and where it is now. It's really well structured, like in the thought behind your intentions.
Thanks.
I think.
Well,
And what you're describing. It's
The
very-
plants frame it. It would be hard to visualize how you do it the other way around with having
Yeah.
buildings in the foreground.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. And that leads to another question that I'll try not to answer myself. You mentioned that before you had a child, you were doing art mainly to make a statement or make an impression to other people or become the world's greatest artist in Portland or whatever. And once you had a child, of course, that involves dedicating your life basically to another human being, another person, which you obviously didn't want to do if it's your own child. But I can see how that would create a need to create something for yourself rather than, I just answered my own question again. But maybe you could go a bit more into that process of changing from one viewpoint to another about the idea of creating art.
Well, something that's interesting when I started getting back into painting, like actually my spouse and I shared a space. He works, like we rented a little space downtown, and I would be there by myself because he would have to watch our child. She was the only one at the time. So I just started making non-objective pieces. Actually, I had some postpartum depression. I actually had postpartum depression, but I also found out a few years later that I had undiagnosed depression, anxiety, and ADHD. So that was fun. So that's a whole other discussion. But a lot of my expression of that anxiety was around her sleeping. Like I had a hard time sleeping. When she was sleeping, I was really scared, like something would happen. And you have those baby monitors that kind of watch them. And so to kind of work through that emotionally, I actually just started painting the little blob shape of her body in her little, like, we call it a starfish. It's kind of something that keep their arms in, you know? And I just started making blob shape paintings with other blobs around them, and I did a bunch of those just to do them. Just did a bunch. Started in my backyard, continued in our studio, and then I was like, I don't have any ideas. And then I started like adding words that would pop into my head to them. And they were just words for me. And I don't remember what they say now. I can look back and go see them, but it was really words that I needed to hear. So, and
so what you're saying then, and I'm going to answer your own question again.
It's okay.
That this new direction in art took place as a result of what some people or many people would consider adversity. In the same way that COVID changed a lot of people's directions, whether they're artists or career-wise or whatever. It provided an opportunity, if you want to look at it that way, to go in a different direction in life.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like just changing my materials. Like I don't have time, but with water media, you just walk away from it. You don't have to clean it up. You don't have to do nothing. And then when you start again, you're just like dab, 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 paint, paint, paint. Great, let's do it. It reactivates. It's very easy. And it's forgiving. So I love it. It has changed my life. Like I've learned, like if I have 10 minutes to paint, that's fine. I can get something done in 10 minutes. Like where before I'd be like, well, I have to go down to the studio, and then by the time I get my palette ready, it'll be time to leave, and I'll have to clean up. And 10 minutes wasn't jack, man. Like it didn't do nothing for me. But I'm like, I can squeeze in little times here and here, and I have an extremely supportive partner who's like, hey, I'm gonna take, our daughter on a bike ride, go paint, and just always like that. Like, I couldn't do that. And I bring that up too. It's interesting because I talk to a lot of women that are like a decade or more older than me, and who are like, oh, it's so good you get to do art still, and you're a mother. Like, I had my child or my children, and that was it. I couldn't do art, and I wish I could do art. And I was just like, I think it's because I'm who I'm married to, honestly. And also because of who I am too, because I was pretty stubborn. I was not gonna make art in just a way that, sometimes, it makes things a little spicy and hairy in our relationship. But I was like, I gotta do it. So, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, it was sort of, it's interesting what you say about the media. That Fairfax, I think it was Marshall McLuhan, that said the medium is the message, but in this case, the medium sort of determines the message or the way you deliver it in a way.
Yeah, and also the plant thing, I loved going outside. We moved here to be out in nature and everything, but I wasn't a forager or a plant identifier like I am now. And part of that was born of like, I don't know if you've ever hiked with a 2-year-old or a toddler. They're like, step. I'm gonna look at this leaf for 20 minutes. You're like, oh God, it's so boring. When you learn about the plants, you're like, oh, I have something to look at too for 20 minutes and nerd out on a bird or a twig or a plant or, so that makes it more fun. And I think that's what started me, and one of my Christmas gifts one year is I asked to go to a weekend where it was like a foraging retreat where they taught you how to identify and plant groups, and it was awesome. It was so good. I went camping and I was by myself. It was so great. So, anyways, yeah.
I just have a thought. And like taking it in, there's the framing of Mother Nature around your perspective. And to me, I think it's going to help me take a step back and look around at what, I'm instead of being mad about the parking lot, what's beyond the parking lot and frame this moment by Mother Nature. That's what I see.
I'm glad you're positive, because some of these I painted specifically because some of these things pissed me off.
Right.
Like those trucks, I'm all for you if you need a truck in your life. I know a lot of artists who need trucks because you got hop stuff but there's so many trucks that people just like, oh, I just like a truck for a car. I'm like, so bad for you. And those ones that are super, super high, you can't see children if they run in front of you. Like, they're very dangerous. So those trucks actually piss. And that one was in the parking lot, and it was clean. And also, it was simultaneously pissed me off, and it was fun to paint because it's shiny. And like getting the light in and getting the line smooth. I was like, oh, what a challenge. So I'm like, I kind of like you now, Doc. So, maybe that healed some of my bitterness at trucks. And so.
Well, that one looks a lot like the truck that's parked next to me in the garage.
Okay.
I always find those big trucks intimidating. So
Yeah.
I think that's the idea of them partially. That they're male symbols,
Yeah. Well,
I'm powerful and
Yeah.
I can run you down easily.
And I think that kind of comes from fear sometimes. Like, I knew a mother who was like, the second my kid drives, I'm going to give him a Hummer because they'll survive anything. I'm like, but who will survive around them? But like, that was a fear. Like, she's like, they'll survive, But anyways, Did you want to?
I have one question and one request,
Okay,
if I may.
yeah.
So the question has got to do with a detail in this painting. So I wanted to know about this.
Oh.
Because like when I saw this in your studio, I was so fascinated by this. I was like, oh my God, I love the little detail. And then, but now they're over here, and now here is a scissors. They look like scissors.
They do
to
look
me,
like
right?
scissors,
Can
yeah.
you tell us about the scissors?
So the scissors are actually, it's just, and you can see a little reflection. That was just the water pooling up there, and it made a little dark puddle, and that's just how it looked. And I was like, and another thing, like something I hate is too much concrete, but boy, is it fun to try and paint concrete well, for real. Like a parking lot and concrete to make it look like something is hard. Like, and not just like, it's a great thing. So it's another fun challenge. But yeah, that's what those scissors are. It's just the way the water and the cracks of the concrete in that
It's really
broken
cool.
down area.
I really
Oh,
love
man.
it. I love the scissors. My
I think
favorite.
you've nailed the concrete.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. And then my request is actually, because I know, but I wanted, the rest of the group here maybe to learn more about it. Like, if you could spend some time about 2 topics, and I can take another piece that is over there. One is about, I know that you started working on gouache and you did a lot of smaller paintings to teach yourself how to do gouache. And I've got one there, I'm going to pick it up in a second.
Okay.
And if you can talk a bit about that, and also if you could talk about this series over here, because it's the precursor to some degree. There is a relationship between the series that you did before and this series in terms of evolution of your quest as an artist, in terms of urbanity and natural and indigenous plants and natural landscapes. So I'm going to give it to you so you can talk about it while I get to do one.
So this is from the last series that I showed and the first solo show I had at Imperfecta. and it was a culmination of 3 years. These pieces took a lot of research to do, so what I did was I took historic landmarks in and around Portland and Oregon City. I think I have one from Astoria. And I studied what the land would have looked like pre-settlement, before it was stolen, and just clear cut and changed so rapidly. And all you can do is make a guess. You can't, there's no way to go back, there's no way to know. A lot of that knowledge has been lost in the indigenous communities, just gone. Because I reached out to a lot of people in different tribes, and a lot of people were like, I wish I could tell you, I don't really know, we don't really know what was there. So, so this is just a nice guesstimation from just knowing what the ecology in the area is, knowing, I chose specific plants for specific reasons. I chose time of year. It would be, so if I chose plants that were blooming in the summer, you know, they would all look nice. So this is Pittock Mansion, and this is the look of Mount Hood. Like if you've ever been to Pittock Mansion, it has a beautiful overlook. So I just photographed that, photographed Pittock Mansion, and then I did about probably each painting. The research kind of compiled, so as I got towards the end, like I knew what to pick and where to go, but I would, yeah, I did months of research leading up to being able to just figure out the paintings, and I did drawings, so all these have process drawings too. So.
And there is another piece, by the way, later you can have a look at this series in the room next door on the top.
Yeah.
And
so.
in there.
Yeah, and then I did a line drawing of the building by hand, because I wanted it to still have my hand in it, on my iPad, and then I had it digitally etched into the plexiglass. So that's how I did that. So.
And that's the baby one, the practice.
Oh yeah, and so here, I'll hand that back to you.
Yes.
And then, thank you, Daria, for asking that question too, because that was a big, like, I knew I wanted, so I was walking around, I live in the historic neighborhood in Oregon City, in the Laughlin neighborhood, and there's a lot of founder history in Oregon City, there's a lot of pioneer history. There's some indigenous history, but not a lot, and I'm like trying to like learn things and find things out, and I can't find it past like something that I think is like kind of token. So it's definitely not as in depth as the other history. So I had the idea for that series way before I started even painting it, and so like I said before, I was painting the little baby blobs asleep, you know, and writing little things on them for me. And then I was like, I know I want to paint now in watercolor and gouache, and it's a skill I don't have yet. So I started making small landscape paintings because I knew I was going to paint the land around me. So, and I put a bunch of them at once, and I just go back through my iPhone photos and find photographs I'd taken of landscapes that I liked, and I just went to town, and I just paint like 3 at once, 4 at once, 6 at once, just because also ADHD, like, now I'm bored this one, like, so, but yeah, this one is called Secret Beach. It's a beach that we found on accident, and it's not a lot of people that ever there, because it doesn't really even have like, it has like a trash can and a little sign in case there's like something you shouldn't eat or go in the water for. Like, don't get the razor clams, there's the bacteria in them, type of thing. So yeah, Secret Beach.
And where is it approximately?
It's around Tillamook area.
No.
Yep. Yep. And you can see like there's little houses on the beach back there, and there's just this piece of awesome driftwood.
I've driven along that stretch many times. My sister has a place in Manzanita. And
Yes.
I've taken long walks along the stretch of beach there.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the beach is just a magical place that I never want to leave when we go there. Ever. Can we stay longer? So, and we're the type of family, like, we go as early as we can in the morning, which isn't that early, and we like have a tent, and we have lunch and a thing, and we stay till it's dinner time, we eat dinner, and then we go, okay, we do lunch. So, any other questions? John, you had a hand in
Well, Daria actually more or less addressed, which was the connection, any connections you saw between the previous series that you showed here and the current one that you're showing.
Yeah, I guess a discussion that you and I had recently, Daria, was just like, before my statement of who I was as an artist, I was like, I just want to make art that connects you to ourselves and each other. And Daria's like, that is too broad. I'm like, yes, it is. She's like, that could be anything. You gotta. And so I was like, well, I think that what I really want to talk about, and what I could probably talk about and paint about for a long time, is how we are a part of nature and how we've divorced ourselves from that, and how that seems so. And back to motherhood, dude. Like, seriously, like, there's nothing in my life that showed me I was an animal more than having a baby. Like, and I also had a miscarriage before, and I was like, whoa, and I was very sad about it, but I think how I processed it was like, we're biology, we're animals. Like, that pregnancy just didn't work, and either biology works or it doesn't for one reason or another, and I'm sad about it, and also, it's out of my control, because it's my biology. Like, so, like, you can make all these decisions for your body and be healthy and do all this stuff, but there's certain things that are just out of your control, and if that doesn't speak to us being animals and part of nature, I don't know what does, you know. And then when I was pregnant too, we were very lucky to be able to go on a baby moon to Hawaii, which was really cool. And I'm just sitting there pregnant, and for the first time we're just looking at the ocean, and I was like, I can feel a tangible self, or a tangible sense of all the energy of everything living around me, human and non. And this is strange. It is like almost like I could reach out and grab it. And so, like, again, gifts of motherhood, that connection to the natural world that we're a part of. So I think that's really moving forward in the next, I don't know, decade or two of my career. I don't know how long I'm going to talk about it, but I can talk about it for a long time. And one thing I will say about this series, and I put it in my statement, is because I grew up religious, there's still lots of Bible things stuck in my head. And while I was painting this, it made me think there's like a story in the Old Testament where, like, you probably have heard of Moses, who's like a dude who took, like, the Israelites out of Egypt. When they got to Egypt, like, they had a way to connect with God. And then they kept asking for a king, even though they just escaped a pharaoh. And they're like, hey, that's fine, we can, but just give us king, just give us king. So they did, and then that made me think of, like, the parallel of that story is, like, our choices. What are we choosing? Like, we could have the wisdom and gifts of these plants, but we mow them down when the landscape needs to look neat. We pave over them so that we can build stuff. Like, we don't take it, we don't learn from it. And what are we exchanging and losing in those choices? So, anyways.
May I? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you kind of started to answer this when you talked about the truck, but I'm wondering, some of these, like that, they're the urban scenes, especially like that fitness gym, it's like a pretty uninspiring place. So I'm wondering, like, is it hard to start the artwork with that and, like, just paint something that, like, because you are kind of, you're painting everything pretty sympathetic, like the glittering on the truck, which you've already said you don't like the truck, but you're kind of like doing it a service by painting it really beautifully. So,
Thanks.
like, I'm wondering about the process. Is it, do you, I don't know, I just find it's like hard to paint something I don't really like to look at. And
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, and to that, there are some of these that I specifically chose because of how freaking boring they are. This one, again, I chose this, I was mad at it. You put this boring, ugly box where there could have been a freaking forest. Like, what was wrong with you? Like, so, and I think maybe my rage fueled that. I don't know. And
Not only is it like a view of the river, when you're on the river, you see
you
that.
see it, yes! It makes you so mad. Thank you. So, and some of the buildings are more interesting, like the Krispy Kreme building's pretty cool. Like, I love reflections in light. Like, there's lots of reflection in the overhang where the inset lights are, and I don't know, like, that's a great question. The Carl's Jr., it's a fugly building, man. It's boring. It's just like so beige. And the Rite Aid, again, so beige, like the truck I ate. But I think it was just like, when I'm interested in a message, I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna paint it. And so part of this message and these discussions are like, you have this beautiful plant with lovely gifts and wisdom that we have divorced ourselves from, and then we chose this freaking ugly block. You know, and that's part of the discussion, honestly. So, yeah.
So I wanted to make a comment, just to share, like, we had conversation about this in the past, but like as a curator and a gallery owner, just wanted to share why Quire's work is in my gallery, because I think, and what I see in it, you know, and the connection that I see between this series and the prior series that, you know, Quire was talking about earlier. So to me, like what I see as a continuation of her work is really, and it came out through the talk in different ways, but it's really the space that is between, on one level, urbanity and natural worlds. So that, you know, it's not this or that, it's what's between the two and the relationship and how they intermingle clearly, right? And also between, the space also between the now and the yesterday, be it, for instance, in the prior series, pioneer time and stolen land time versus what was before that. You know, as well as in this case, for example, buildings that are abandoned and closed, non-existent, and some of them, you know, they used to have a glitz life and colors and music in the parking lot, you know, and some of them are like still open and alive, and some of them aren't. And so again, you know, like how time travels through. I'm an architect, maybe I see more than intended, but to me it's like how time creates patina on artificial kind of buildings, which because they are, you know, artificially constructed things, and how actually nature appropriates and creates a very different patina, you know, through time, you know. And so I think, to me, there is a progression that I see in the post-baby kind of work of Quire, which is really these interstitial spaces, right, between urban landscapes and natural landscape, and the yesterday and the today and maybe the tomorrow one day, and, you know, the history of one type versus history of someone else, you know, like, and how those things can actually coexist and always do, like in that painting over there where you have the reflection of the line work on top of the background. I mean, they're coexisting, right? And how somehow we are in society, so especially in binary society, seeing only one of those, but actually there are multiple stories and stratifications that exist. And so to me, as a curator, that's what I find attractive in Quire's work.
Thanks, Daria. Any other questions or comments? Or cool. One thing I was gonna say is like there's a nonprofit that I follow on the social medias, and what they do, they're in England, but I'm like, please come here. They take like small strips of urban areas and they rewild it, and I'm just like, every time I go for a walk, I'm like, that could be wild. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so fun. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna close then. Thank you guys for all